And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy. That is if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So, you see what I did there?
Look. All right, guys, so we got to talk about Vivek Ramaswamy weighing in on Kamala Harris's vice presidential pick, Tim Walz, who already is doing what Democrats do best, which is to lie. As you guys saw at the beginning of the video, Tim Walz was repeating a lie that was completely made up by the left, that J.D. Vance had sex with a couch when he was younger. Okay, Democrats and their operatives made up a story about J.D. Vance having sex with a couch, and this guy is repeating it on the campaign trail at rallies. Now, will, again, the mainstream liberal media fact check this? No, they're not going to fact check it. They're not going to say anything about it. Again, this is the type of stuff that Democrats are allowed to get away with. But if you question Kamala Harris's race and whether or not she's actually black, the mainstream liberal media, they will be in shambles, okay? They will accuse you of hate and bigotry. But you can completely make up a story about J.D. Vance having sex with a couch and they won't say anything, right? That's totally fair, okay? These people are trying to unify the country. This is what the mainstream liberal media says, okay? But despite the propaganda from the mainstream liberal media, Tim Walz is already being exposed for who he is, which is a coward, okay? This is the same guy that was hiding in a bunker as the BLM rioters destroyed Minneapolis during the George Floyd riots, okay? And apparently this guy also is being accused of stolen valor, because when it was time for him to go to Iraq, he decided to retire beforehand, essentially abandoning his fellow soldiers before they go into battle. Take a look.
He's back again to wage a public war of words against Tim Walz.
He abandoned us. You know, I mean, what the hell kind of leader does that? I mean, he just, as soon as the shots were fired in Iraq, he turned and ran the other way and hung his hat up and quit.
We'll get to Behrends' new message for voters in a moment. But this all starts years earlier, when Behrends says Walz's misleading statements about his military service first led him to come forward in the fall of 2018.
So you try to get this message out, but Minnesota's largest newspaper checks it out, says it's 100% true, but yet refuses to print.
When I hung the phone up, I said, what the hell is this, North Korea?
Back in 2005, a warning order went out to the 1st Battalion, 125th Field Artillery to mobilize for a mission to Iraq. At the time, Walz served as the unit's highest non-commissioned officer, but months later, Walz would retire from the Guard, avoid the deployment, and run for Congress. Tom Behrends was next in line for the position and was asked to take his place.
I was like, well, for Pete's sake, if this guy quit, and if I say I'm not going to do it, I mean, what the hell kind of leadership is that? If a company would say that we're going to deploy to Iraq or somewhere and you're going to be gone for whatever amount of time, and then the foreman just says, no, I'm not going. I mean, what does that say to the 500 people that work in that factory?
Behrends would go on to serve in Iraq on a nearly 2-year deployment as a command sergeant major. All while Walz began using that title as a congressman. Behrends says he first contacted Walz with his concerns, sending these letters to Washington. They all went unanswered.
But then we fast forward to the election in 2018 in Minnesota, and you try at that time to get people's attention with this story and also with what seems to be a very misleading statement that he continued to make about his service.
It kind of just sat there. You know, when he was a congressman, he bragged that he was a command sergeant, retired command sergeant major. I'm the highest ranking person ever in the House, and all this lie that he was telling. The state of Minnesota came out after 2018, after this was exposed, and they said, well, he can say that he served as a command sergeant major, but he can't say he's a retired one because he's not.
And that's what he was saying.
And he was saying that, and there was lots of lots of cards coming in the mail, for him to be elected. They said right on there he's a retired command sergeant major, just tooting his own horn, just hanging on the coattails of people that actually are command sergeant majors that went through all the process and put all the time in.
A spokesperson for the Minnesota National Guard said Walz wasn't able to retire as a command sergeant major since he failed to complete coursework and requirements related to the rank. Verified documents show the Army corrected his service record. Walz was reduced in rank to an E8 Master Sergeant after retirement and his conditional promotion. Alpha News again asked Governor Walz if he's using the Command Sergeant Major rank on his campaign website for political gain this year. A spokesperson said this has been in the news before and pointed us to a past story where Walz said, quote, "Normally this type of partisan political attack only comes from one who's never worn a uniform."
It's stolen valor is really what it is. I don't know of anybody else that's done what he's done. But we called it the truth about Tim Walz.
In 2018, Behrends gave the story the full court press.
We, retired command sergeant majors of the Minnesota National Guard, feel it is our duty and responsibility to bring forth the truth as we know it concerning his service record. I put together information on it and I sent it out to every single radio station and newspaper and TV station I could in the state. The bottom line in all of this is gut-wrenching and sad to explain. When the nation called, he quit.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, "Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this." I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Yeah, so you've seen that, you heard that. Now, the accusation against Tim Walz here is that he's being accused of stolen valor because he continued to say that he was a retired command sergeant major for most of his political career. However, because he dropped out of the military, of the National Guard, before being deployed to Iraq shortly after his promotion to command sergeant major, he actually had his rank reduced to master sergeant. So he actually was only a master sergeant, but that's not what he tells everybody when he talks about his career in the military, right? He leaves out the part about him losing that rank because he decided to retire before being deployed to Iraq, okay? Leaving his fellow soldiers high and dry, okay? And people are pissed off about it. The Minnesota media covered it up. But now, because we have this presidential election, this guy is Kamala Harris' VP pick, you would think that the mainstream liberal media would actually, I don't know, do the same thing they did with J.D. Vance and dig up dirt on this guy in order to criticize him and to inform the American people about what they're voting for when they vote for a guy like this, except that's not what they're doing. They're doing the exact opposite of what they did with J.D. Vance. They're kissing this dude's ass.
Kamala Harris picks Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as running mate.
What does Walz bring to this?
He's cuddly.
And cuddly.
Cuddly.
Cuddly? I think she went for maybe a little more of a cuddly choice.
It tells more about, like, the texture of the man.
He seems to almost have a twinkle in his eye.
Tim Walz is the opposite of weird.
Tim Walz beats America.
He sounds like, you know, a football coach.
He's a hunter
that you could visit with at the hardware store. In a dictionary, if you had weird and anti-weird, you'd have Tim Walz's picture there. I bet knows how to make a good hot dish casserole.
He's very down to earth.
It's his authenticity.
Authentic communicator.
The word joy came up a lot.
He's joyful.
He seems happy.
A happy-go-lucky warrior.
And he's happy and a happy warrior.
The joyful warrior.
He is one happy warrior.
A happy warrior.
The happy warrior.
Nice guy.
Good guy.
A very nice person.
Reliable.
Definitely affable.
He is an extremely affable individual.
Very affable, plain-speaking way, a folksy vibe. This folksy idea.
Terrific vibe.
Vibes election.
Kind of a folksy guy. The idea that Tim Walz is some lefty is just not true.
I don't think either of them are Bernie Sanders progressive.
A rather safe pick. I think a safe pick.
The safe choice. This is a do no harm pick. Do no harm.
He's just more of a vanilla pick.
It's a younger version of Joe Biden.
We got Brad Summer. We've got coconut tree memes.
There's joy in the Democratic Party right now.
Those outside of Pittsburgh loves Tim Walz. So talk about Walz.
Yeah, so I want you guys to understand, this is how the media rigs public opinion in real time. When Trump selected J.D. Vance, was there this honeymoon period where they talked about how great J.D. Vance was and all the positive things that he did? Okay, did they talk about his life and his book in a positive way or his career in a positive? No, they did not. They instantly started looking up clips of him online saying things that they could use to weaponize against him. That's where the whole cat ladies thing came from. It's not something that he said recently. It was something that this man said years ago. Years ago. Okay? And they used it against him immediately. Now, Kamala Harris picks Tim Walz. Now, again, keep in mind, nobody voted for this, right? Nobody voted for a Harris-Walz ticket, right? You would think the mainstream liberal media would do what's in the public's best interest and to actually educate people on this man's record, but that's not what they're doing. It's nothing but an ass-kissing fest where they're all saying the same things about the guy, trying to gin up fake public support for him. This is what we're dealing with, guys. This is why I tell you, we're not just facing the Democrats. We're also facing the media as well, too. So this is why I tell you, do not buy into the nonsense for the mainstream liberal media talking about, oh, J.D. Vance is so unpopular. He's such a bad pick. Yeah, because they manufactured J.D. Vance to be unpopular, okay? If the liberal media would cover Tim Walz the same way they cover J.D. Vance, Tim Walz would be way more unpopular, okay? Because there's so much dirt on this man. So much dirt. But again, because the mainstream liberal media refuses to do their jobs, this is where we are, okay? And people got to understand what we're dealing with here, okay? We're not just competing against the Democrats. We're competing against the media because they are astroturfing Kamala Harris's campaign like something we've never seen before, right? So this is what we're up against. So that being said, I want to react to Vivek Ramaswamy chiming in on this Tim Walz pick from Kamala Harris.
How does this pick change the dynamic of this race, Vivek?
The reality is, to be totally frank, the last few weeks have not been our best, Jesse. This gives us the reset that we needed. This is a gift from on high from the Democratic Party. It is also a lens into how Kamala Harris will govern. Unlike a lot of other people, I don't think Kamala Harris is particularly ideological. I don't think she has far-left ideology. I don't think she has any ideology.
Hey, well, I'm going to tell you, Vivek, I think I disagree with that. I think that Kamala Harris definitely has an ideology. I think she's just far left, right? I think she's a leftist who's willing to shapeshift and to be whoever she needs to be in the moment in order to get votes, okay? But I definitely think she's a far leftist. This is why she picked a far leftist running mate. Also, notice how Vivek pronounces Kamala's name, right? I think he says Kamala, right? See, again, the Indian man knows how to pronounce her name because Kamala is Indian, right? And all the black people don't know how to pronounce her name because Kamala, again, arguably is not black, right? So, again, it's just funny how that works, how the Indian man knows how to say the black woman's name perfectly, right? But black people don't know how to say the black woman's name at all, okay? It's just funny how that works.
But it shows how she's going to buckle to pressure, because this was the first presidential-style decision that she had before her. Do you want a governing agenda of a centrist who I disagree with on a lot of things, but Josh Shapiro, or do you want to buckle to the cave of pressure from the radical left? She made the choice. And so I think this is our best lens to see how she's actually going to govern. The reality is the vice president is far less relevant. He's not going to be the one setting policy. The reason I actually find this decision fascinating is it gives us a lens into the way Kamala Harris makes decisions. And the reality is she buckles to the person who ultimately puts the most pressure on her. That's what we learned today. This was a gift. It resets the race. And I think we are on path back yet, once again, to a victory, because Pennsylvania could back again be in play for Republicans.
Yeah, you're right. Shapiro definitely was going to help with Pennsylvania. He doesn't help anywhere. They say he helps with the Midwestern white man. Are they going to buy this guy that wants to give boys tampons in fourth grade?
The reality is this is a guy they're pitching in completely the wrong way as some type of Midwestern unifier. First of all, you can't be the unifier while also leading the charge on calling 70+ million Americans weird in his term.
And also on top of that, peddling a made-up story about J.D. Vance effing a couch, right? That's also not very unifying as well, too. But again, the media, they're not going to fact check it. They're not going to essentially denounce those type of lies that Democrats tell. They're not going to do any of this stuff. This is why I'm telling you guys, again, you're seeing the rigging happen in real time, right? They're straight up rigging public opinion and public perception in real time by what they choose to cover and what they choose not to cover. It's really fascinating to see it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And when you see it, you get extremely frustrated. Trust me.
And the reality is we have a much stronger case in return if we want to play that game. Boys versus girls, can't define the difference. Boys competing with girls in women's sports competitions, even taking away your gas stoves. He's actually been one of the greatest climate alarmist governors in the United States on the left or the right. So if we wanted to level that charge in return, we have a stronger case. But the reality is he can't be a unifier, but also somebody who's alienating 70+ million Americans as just plain weird, as he calls it. The other thing is it's just one Potemkin village of identity politics, Jesse. The Democrats, it's almost as they don't look at the actual content of the candidates they put up. They realized it had to be a black woman in the vice presidency, now the presidency. That's exactly the reason Kamala got her job. But having checked that box, now they need to revert the other direction, right? Which is the Midwestern, folksy, white guy of a regular type. And the reality is when they stop giving positions out on the basis of merit and start using these group quotas in either direction, they end up with the worst of all worlds, and that's what this ticket represents.
Yeah, I think I agree with that in the sense that this guy is clearly a DEI pick. And the reason why is because he got picked because he wasn't a Jew, one, and also he's, a white man. And Kamala's whole list was nothing but white men because Democrats are trying to appeal to white men. But what it is, it's a Trojan horse, right? This guy, this folksy old white guy, right, who hunts and fishes, they're trying to use his image to get uneducated white male rural voters to come out and to support him. Okay, this is how stupid they think that the American people are. They don't just think black people are stupid. Apparently, they think white men are stupid too, right? They think that you're stupid enough to sign up for this, okay, for this socialism, right? Just because Kamala's VP hunts and fishes and looks a lot older than he actually is, and he's white. That's the only reason he got picked, right? He got picked because he looked like a stereotype of the type of voter that Kamala Harris feels that she will struggle with. And it has nothing to do with policy. Like, for example, when it comes to traditional political wisdom, from a policy perspective, somebody like Kamala Harris should have picked a moderate, but she did it. Okay, she picked a far leftist, and she said, okay, well, this far leftist looks like a moderate, right? He has a moderate appeal because he's old and white. Therefore, I'm going to try to sell this to the American people, right? And you can only feel confident enough in this tactic if you know that the media is behind you, if you know you're not going to be questioned, if you know that the media is not going to do their job. That's the only way Kamala Harris can feel comfortable doing this, right? And this is why I respect Trump's pick of J.D. Vance, because he didn't go along with the identity politics nonsense. Because a lot of people say, well, the last person that Trump needs to pick is a white male, right? Because he's a white male and he appeals to the white male. So therefore, he shouldn't pick another white male, even if he feels like a white male is the best person for the job. No, he shouldn't do that, right? You should actually pick a woman or a black person, okay? Because it's going to help get all these other voters who Trump may not appeal to. And Trump said, you know what? No, I'm not going to go along with that. I'm just going to pick the person I feel is best for the job. And if it happens to be a white male, then so be it. That's what he did. But again, Democrats can't do that. No, Democrats only pick the white man because they are afraid they're going to lose white male voters. And they didn't pick a white male that ideologically aligns with the white males they're trying to get. No, they just picked a white male that looks like the white males that they're trying to get so that they can fool those white males into voting for something that they probably are not going to agree with.
The Minneapolis riots, that's going to be front and center in this campaign. It's going to be about the economy. But remember in that summer what happened? He let that city burn. He let it burn. And then blamed America for the fact that it burned. Why would she pick someone like that on the ticket? Why?
Well, the fact of the matter is she wasn't making a sound decision, but there's three issues that matter in this election, Jesse. Immigration, economy, crime. On economy, he raised taxes, shows you what he thinks about economic growth. On immigration, he wants to build a ladder over the border wall and give free health care and taxpayer-funded subsidies to migrants. And on crime, that's really where the George Floyd riots come in. This is not turning America into St. Paul or Minneapolis. That's what they want to do. We say no. We have a clear choice to do it in the ballot box in November. And I think this is now our race to lose. Let's step up, focus on our agenda. And if we do, we win this thing once again.
You're right about the Democrat machine. They have decided to run crazy San Francisco and burning Minneapolis against Donald Trump. And that is just, that's not going to work out. I don't think it's going to work out. We'll wait and see, but that's just crazy. Vivek, thanks as always.
Well, I mean, again, here's the problem. The problem is that it's the media, right? I mean, that's what it comes back to. Because again, if the media was actually honest, if they were actually neutral, no, it wouldn't work, right? I mean, if the media was actually neutral, Kamala Harris wouldn't even be close to Trump right now. It wouldn't even be a race. But because the media is going out of their way to try to rig things in her favor, it's almost as if they know that we can get away with this, right? We can get away with having two socialists on the ticket because we're not going to be criticized. And this is what I tell you guys about. This is how real demagogues come to power, right? The only reason that Democrats are able to run such a far left ticket, the most far left ticket we've ever seen in history, is literally because Trump is their opponent. If it was anybody else and not Trump, they would not have the cojones to run such a far left ticket, right? But because there's so much Trump derangement in this country, because they know there's so many people that are going to be against Trump just because he's Trump, because they know that the media is going to be against Trump just because he's Trump, they can just get away with the most Looney Tunes, insane agenda that we've ever seen in this country. But let's be honest, they don't even have an agenda, right? They don't have an agenda. They don't have to, because the media is not going to hold them accountable for having an agenda. Trump derangement is going to be the downfall of this country. If this clown show ticket wins, it's going to be because of Trump derangement. And again, that's the sad part about it, guys. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.